There we go. We are recording. All right, so there's bell work. I guess I could zoom in a little bit. 2 minutes. There you go. I will do attendance. There, let's move in there. Up there. Back in that corner by those baskets. Not graded the quizzes from Monday yet. I was hoping to get them done, but I spent way more time here after school 2 days ago. I was actually just coming to do that. Thank you. Yeah, I tutored somebody 2 days ago and yesterday after school forever, and then I had a parent night last night. So unfortunately, but I should be able to do this class. I already did second period, so I should finish this class today. Next period, actually, third period. All right, so timer went off. Let's talk about these real quick, and then I'll tell you what we're doing today and really for the rest of the week and even kind of next week. What is a proportion? That's probably the toughest one. You should definitely know the next one, but proportion I can see being a little tricky. But anybody have any idea what a proportion is? Something that you've done before. No food, please. That's Kaylee's. Eat breakfast. Ask me during the class, like we have interest. Over there on the lake. That's the thing. What's proportion? Or what does it mean if I say something is proportional? Somebody say something. Come on. Otherwise, all you people with earbuds are getting earbuds. See them. It's not loud. All right, so let's take all the earbuds out, put all your phones up. So, Chris, again, when you engage and you participate, you get away with more. If you're going to sit there and do nothing, then we're going to be more strict on the rules. A proportion has to do with a lot of stuff. The one I will use again is baking, cooking. If you ever have a recipe, and that recipe will say it makes a certain number of servings. So let's say you have a recipe that makes 4 servings. So if one recipe makes 4 servings, and whatever the ingredients are make the 4 servings, actually we can use ingredients even. Let's say to get those 4 servings, you need 3 teaspoons of salt. So this is the salt that you need to make. Do you know what a serving is? Well, I guess it's a serving. Can't use serving to define serving. hard to explain. I just realized that is a word you probably didn't know. It's basically, we're going to call it how many people it feeds. Like one serving, you would kind of say feeds one person. That's not normally true. Normally I eat way more than one serving, but we'll say it's people. So instead of serving, we'll just change it to people. So if the recipe feeds 4 people, and in the recipe, we need 3 teaspoons of salt, that's how much salt we need to feed 4 people. But what if we got 20 people coming up? What if we're throwing a big party? That's not going to be enough, right? What do we got to do? We got 20 people coming over. How much salt? We're just going to focus on the salt for the example. How much salt am I going to use? What will we times some 5? I see, and I get that. If there's 20 people coming over, 5 times that is 20. I get that. So if I multiply times 5, I get that I get to the 20 people. But why do I have to multiply 5 times the salt? Yeah, I'm making this fraction 5 times, right? Because I need to serve 4 people and then 4 more people and then 4 more people. So if I'm doing that, I need to keep doing the same thing with the salt. So I need to multiply times 5. So I would need 15 teaspoons, I think, of salt. That's a proportion. These two numbers, fractions, are really equal to each other as far as their overall value. If I combine, or not combine, how do we convert a fraction to a decimal? You divide specifically what by what? You divide, you guys should all know this. If you don't know this, every time I say it, because you'll use this a lot. This is one of the things you use a lot in your life. Like, sometimes you're going to need to understand what a fraction is as a decimal, right? What do I need to do? Earbud out too, please. I'm taking it out earlier. What do? I divide something, 2 things actually, something by something. Yes. Only 2 numbers. What? Say it again. What we shy? That would convert it to a percent. So if we have a decimal and we want, or actually, if we have a whole number and we want to make it into a fraction, we divide it by 100. I'm sorry, into a percentage. Not 10. It's actually the numbers we already have there. We use the numbers we already have to turn the fraction into a decimal. Divide what by what? Which one by which one? That's the key. Yeah, to get this down. We take, so here's how you convert. So you need to write this down. Because again, you don't get fancy calculators on your EOC the first day. Even if you do get them, if you don't know how to use them, they're not going to do any good the second day. And this kind of stuff could definitely come up. It's actually sort of a way to, and that is a bad word to use, but it's the only word I can come up with. It's kind of a little bit of a cheat way on some of these standardized tests, where it's a multiple choice test. They want you to do fractions a lot of times, but if you understand how to convert a fraction into a decimal and you're better at working with decimals, sometimes you can just convert every fraction to a decimal and just work with the decimals. And that will make a lot of times the equations easier to solve, because you treat a decimal number just like you would any other number. And then you don't have to worry about dealing with fractions on like the EOC next year, or you'll take the PSAT. So if I say 3 divided by 4, that will convert that into a decimal. Top divided by the bottom. Top number divided by bottom. Converts any fraction into a decimal. If I say 15 divided by 20, that converts it into a decimal, which is the same number. So if a fraction is in proportion, it's got the same value. Do you remember doing, well, hopefully you remember doing this. If I take that number and I say simplify it, 5/10, what's that equal? 1/2, right? You guys are familiar with certain fractions. 2/4, I could have put up there. It's the same concept. you're really just you're going backwards. You're normally taking a smaller number and increasing it when you're dealing with, well, I shouldn't say normally, a lot of times. In simplifying a fraction, you're taking a bigger numbers and making them smaller numbers. In proportions, a lot of times you might have a smaller number and you're creating a bigger number if you're talking about cooking and baking, because your recipe is going to be typically for a small number of people. You want to increase it to make it for a larger number of people. But the key is they're really the same value. 5/10, if I said 5 divided by 10, it's 0.5. If I said 1 divided by 2, it's 0.5. So that's what a proportion is. The real quick check, because again, you may not have a calculator, so you may not be able to say 3 divided by 4 easily. You may have to do long division, which is kind of a pain. If it is a proportion though, so you need to write this part down. I would write the 5/10 and the 1/2 down for this explanation. If it is truly a proportion, this concept right here is going to be true all the time. You ever see anything like this? Does this look familiar? Teachers do that for you in middle school. Some people call it cross multiplying. Some people call it the butterfly, something or other. What, and you're really, truly, you are multiplying. So the numbers that are in one of the, it's not a circle, it's called an ellipse. It's what ellipses. We're multiplying those numbers together. And if it is a proportion, and we're going to use this concept to solve for the variables in some of the fraction problems. If it is a proportion, the numbers that you get, your answers that you get to both of those products will always be equal. So if I multiply 10 times 1, and it doesn't matter which one you do first. So if I multiply 10 times 1, I get 10. If I multiply 5 times 2, I get 10. So that's like a rule or a definition of a proportion. If you cross multiply, you'll get two numbers, and those two numbers will be equal to each other. So just like I showed you, if I cross multiply up here, same thing would happen. 15 times 4 is 60. 3 times 20 is 60. You'll get the same number. It's a definition of a proportion. So you need to remember that. So I hope you wrote that down. I mean, you did. All right, next. What does 3y mean? 3 next to y. 3 times y. That's sort of a review thing, but we're still solving equations, so you need to understand that for really the whole rest of the year. Every time you don't know the answer to that immediately, write it down again. Say 3y or whatever. It's not 3y, obviously, write down whatever I say. What does negative 7b mean? Oh, my new student. Oh, we have a new student. I mean, he's not brand new. I don't think I introduced him. So our new-ish student is Justin. So Justin's our new-ish student. He was here just last class. I don't think you were here last weekend. So were you at this school and you just came into this class? You just got a schedule change, or were you at another school? Oh, I wasn't. Okay. I thought you were. I couldn't remember. So negative 7b, I'm going to go with Kristen. What's negative 7b mean? What did 3y mean? So what's negative 7b mean? Negative 7 times b, same thing. Doesn't matter if it's a negative in front of it, it's still negative 7. Now you could, when there's a negative in front of the term, if you don't follow this, don't worry about it. Because what are the rules for multiplying? Like, what will the answer be if you have a positive and a negative? What's the answer going to be? If you have one positive, one negative, what's the answer going to be? Negative, right? It doesn't matter which one comes first. So look over here. A negative, and the division and multiplication are the same rules, so it doesn't matter if it's division or multiplication. But a negative times a positive is a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. So if you have one negative, one positive, it doesn't matter which one comes first. So we could really say this negative 7b, we could just say it's that, just like you would kind of think based on 3y being 3 times y. But we could also say it's this, 7 times negative b. Doesn't matter which one we make negative, really. So sometimes this is easier to understand in problems. Sometimes that one's better because you're going to wind up dividing by -7. If you're adding them together, sometimes this is easier to understand if you're adding terms together, combining like terms. Ray, what's the next one mean? 2 parentheses 3x plus 1. I'll give you a hint. Go with the theme that we just had for number 2 and 3. So it is a 3 times x in here. But what else? Still multiplication. If you do not see do you need to step outside or you were answering? All right. So did you have anything to add to that?
So also the parentheses equal somehow.
Yeah. When we did word problems, that's fantastic. When we did word problems, we had a problem that said, so in words, this would be 2 times or the product of 2 and then the sum of 3x plus 1, or really 3 times x plus 1, you have to say. So good. From the word problems, which a lot of you will be making up or retaking at some point. So that's the kind of thing that it would be helpful to still be thinking in those terms as well. Because there was one problem where I gave you the equation and you had to change it into word problem, and it was just like that. And a lot of people missed it. Almost, I don't know that anybody got it completely correct. I didn't mention this in last class, but since I'm recording, I'm gonna mention it. If you're changing something to a word problem and you see that there, you can't just say for and in or for in, which is what a lot of people did. You have to tell me the math that you're doing when you change that to words. You have to say for times or multiplied or the product of for and. Somehow you got to tell me the math. A lot of you just put for in. You just wrote this. For in. Well, does that mean I'm adding in 4 times? Well, I don't know what that means. You've got to tell me the math you're doing in those problems. And most of you, a lot of you didn't do that. And then there was something similar I think that was on the right side of the equation. And then on the left side, there was something sort of similar. I think it might have actually been parentheses. A lot of you didn't know how to take the expression that was in the parentheses. You didn't know how to handle the parentheses. So before you do the retake, which I'm going to go ahead and start allowing that process now. I've got a form I'll go over on Friday. Yeah, and I don't think we'll get to it today. I didn't do it yesterday with yesterday's class. I told him I'd do it on Thursday. If we get to it in this class, I may go ahead and let you guys have the information today. But you do need to start that process early. If you're already behind, like you got 4 or 5 makeups you need to do this quarter, I'm just saying, you're going to run out of time. I don't see how you're going to get those done in time by the end of the quarter if you get way behind on your makeups. We've already had 2 quizzes. I'm pretty sure some of you have two retakes already to do. Not a lot, but there are some people I'm pretty sure that are going to be in that situation. It takes a few days to do what you need to do in order for me to allow you to do a retake. It's not a matter of just going, oh yeah, I want to come in at lunch and do the retake. Work like that. You gotta show me your notes. Show me that you completed all the practice problems. If you did complete them all the first time and you still didn't do well, I'm going to give you more so you can practice more. Then you have to go to tutoring at least once. You can be with me if you have second lunch. For now, I can actually do something after school for a little while till one of the sports starts up, either flag football or basketball, whichever one starts first. And even then, I might have a day here and there where I could do it after school. But I will definitely be less available once that happens. You can go to G2 during lunch or after school. And then you're going to also have to answer a few questions, which won't take long, but again, it's a process. It's not just a matter of telling me you want to retake it. So if you got to do that for 4 or 5 quizzes because you need 4 or 5 retakes, you're not going to get that kind of stuff done before the end of the quarter. So do them sooner, don't wait until later. All right, so this then means there's actually multiplication in there twice. So it's really 2 times And then in the parentheses, it's 3 times x plus 1. So just, you got to understand that there's multiplication when if you don't see some kind of math symbol. We show every math symbol except multiplication. We write a plus sign for addition. We would write a subtraction sign if that was subtraction. For division, we don't write the little division thing, but we might say this: 2x plus 1 over 4. That's division. We show division using this fraction line. We don't show multiplication. If you have this sheet, look at every problem on here. I'll bet you money you don't see a multiplication sign. We don't show it. So you've got to understand, when you don't see math between a number and a variable, or in this case, a number in the parentheses, sometimes it'll be between a variable and a variable. If you see WY, that means W times Y. There's nothing in between two numbers. Sometimes you'll see this if it's just numbers, because we can't just write 2 next to 3, because then it looks like 23. You don't know that you're multiplying. Somehow you do have to show that you're multiplying two numbers. You can do that either with parentheses like that, or parentheses around just one of the terms. So you might also see this, just parentheses around the 3, maybe. That tells you you're multiplying. What's the other way? And then the other way would just be like this. They just put I'll typically use the dot. I think the worksheets normally use this. They put the number next to the other number, and they put parentheses around one of them. So all of these ways show multiplication. That shows multiplication between numbers. That shows multiplication. That shows multiplications or multiplication. When it comes to variables, though, they'll just do it like that or like that. Got to get that down. Every time you don't know it, when I ask that question, write it down. This means multiplication. This means multiplication. All right, I did a much longer version of that than I did in the other class. So we are today going to do solving the problems that have fractions in them. We skipped those the first day. Hopefully you did a whole bunch of the ones that don't have fractions. A lot of you didn't. That was your practice for the first, not the first, but for the quiz last week on solving two-step equations. Today we're going to finish that sheet. Well, we're going to do the ones that have fractions. I'm going to teach you how to do those. And then you should be able to do every problem in that 2-page sheet. You're just going to practice after that. So look at number, I'm actually going to do it differently in here. I'm going to do a little bit, well, they're all the same. Look at number 15. If you don't have the sheet, if you lost it, oh boy, if you weren't here, Justin, I'm talking to you. I don't have any more, unfortunately, so I'm going to get you to copy this down today, and then maybe I'll make you a copy since it's not your fault. I don't think I have them. Pretty sure. I was looking for one in yesterday's class, and I couldn't, other than the one that I have, I couldn't find it. I actually couldn't even find the document from my folders. I saved drive. So for today, just copy that. Oh, if you need paper and supplies and stuff, there's pencils in here sometimes there's not. And then there's notebook paper over here, and there's a little, you'll see it come over here, it's labeled notebook paper. Or do you have like just a math specific folder, like just one of these, it's just math? You want it? I have them in here for people. Do you want one? Or would you rather put it in the binder? Okay. I keep them in here. Nope. Not right now. You got to see this. All right. So if I have that problem right there, hopefully some of you recognize that this is a proportion. I have a fraction here. Now I've got multiple things in the top part of the fraction, but it's still a fraction. All of this, whatever that is, that's a number. I don't know what X is yet, but X is a number. So it's a number over a number. That's a fraction. I then over here don't have a fraction. And then we said a proportion is a fraction, right? We said this is a proportion. But what can I do to that -2 to make it into a fraction? We said, I'm pretty sure we went over this. Do what? Yeah, any number. So you don't know this immediately when I ask it. We can change any number into a fraction by putting a 1 under it. That doesn't change the value. -2 divided by 1 is still -2, but now it's in a fraction, and now we have a proportion, and we're going to use that whole cross multiplying thing to solve for the variable. And there's another way to do it too that I'm going to show you. Sometimes this way is easier, sometimes the other way is easier. So go ahead, write down that first step, and you need to be telling yourself what the first step was. First step was we changed the 2 into a fraction, the -2 into a fraction. So don't just copy what I do. You need to add some stuff to it to explain what we did in your own words. If you're just copying down what I'm doing, probably not going to be as successful. My brain may not work the way your brain thinks. Pretty sure it does. Brain can work unique ways. Makes sense to me, doesn't always make sense to other people. But oh well, I'm stuck with it. Burning up this morning. One head down, something. Oh, it's back up. One head. What do you guys play now? Play good, do you know? Should be another way. You guys haven't lost yet, right, JV? Varsity. All right, so when we cross multiply, I'm going to kind of just work through this one myself because there's plenty of them for you to practice. We take these two numbers and we're going to multiply them together. We're going to take, and then we're going to set that equal to these two numbers multiplied together. So I'm going to take baby steps and say x subtract 1 times 1, which is pretty easy. Anything times 1 is the same thing, so that side will be easy. And that's going to equal -4 times -2. So I could have written that -4 times -2 using parentheses. I used the multiplication symbol. I'll try to change it up a little bit so that you can see different ways so that it helps you remember. So what do I get on the left then? Where did I stop? I stopped at Ray. Daniela. What did I get? What do I get on the left? Pretty easy one. Say it again. No, not just 1. If I'm multiplying this times that. You say it. Do you know? If you don't know, that's fine. Don't know? All right, what do we get on the left, Gabrielle? Oh, come on, what's anything times 1? I'll go ahead and let the volunteer. How are you volunteering then? And still reconnect with normally. Still recording? I can't tell. The meeting is still going. It says, all right, all right, let me just see if this works. Hopefully this will work. We'll see. If not, then this one may not be recorded. I've got an old, well, actually I didn't. What is x subtract 1 times 1 then? Not 1 is subtract 1. It's this whole thing. Anything times 1 is just the original thing. So it's this. Anything times 1 is itself. Well, if we're multiplying this times 1, then that's what we have left over. So if you, again, well, then that was pretty much everybody struggled with that. You need to make some notes on that. You're gonna see that a lot, especially if you do this cross multiplying, but even if you don't, you're still gonna see it a lot. Anything times one, I don't care what it is. I could put this, x squared plus y squared, subtract 8x plus 4 in parentheses and say times 1. Well, it just equals 8x squared plus y squared, subtract 8x plus 4. Anything times 1 is that same thing. You don't really have to write all that down. You just have to write anything times 1. So,
In other words, that whatever.
yeah, anything. Well, and it's not always going to be in parentheses, but yeah, in this case, what's in parentheses, I mean, it might just be, 3x times 1 or something like that with no parentheses. But yeah, whatever you have here, and then you're multiplying that times 1, it's just whatever you had here. All right, let me go backwards to get rid of that. All right, so on this side, then we have x subtract 1. What do we have on the right? Where did I stop? WDL. So A, you've already answered. Logan, you've been quiet. That's pretty. I turned your stuff in, by the way, to Mr. DiMartino. Oh, and you're missing something in it, so he's probably going to send it. You got to have insurance. There was a forum that talked about it in there. So if you're signing up for sports, and you're interested, even if it's later in the year, you've got to have a physical and you've got to have the insurance. Don't forget that. The insurance isn't in the packet. I mean, there's a little flyer in there that tells you how to get it, but you don't fill the packet out to get the insurance. You have to go online and do the insurance. And then you have to do the physical, obviously, in person. What is -4 times -2, Logan? This is all. I'll give you another shot. What is it? Oh, yeah, the 8 part, right? Division and multiplication are the same. These rules are the same. Doesn't matter if you're dividing or multiplying. Same rules. So we say a negative times, so that's multiplication, which is times. So a negative multiplied times a negative is a positive, right? So you will not have that kind of stuff up when it comes to district tests, when it comes to the midterm and the final, because I think all that stuff's computer, or even if it's on paper, we're not allowed to put stuff up for you to use in class for those. I'll leave it up during the quizzes we take, but you've got to know that by the midterm for sure. Well, really before that, I think you have a test from the district in October. So this is a positive 8 on that side. So now I need to solve for x. What did we say solving for a variable really mean? Or like, what's the goal? We're solving for a variable. We're really just trying to do what? Eval, right? What are we really just trying to do? If we're solving for that x, what are we really just trying to do to solve for x? This is kind of like my definition of solve. Yeah, we're just trying to get that x by itself. That's all solving is. So if I want to get this little guy by himself or herself, I need to get rid of that subtract 1. How do I get rid of subtract 1? I want it to go to 0. Do you know, Justin? How do we get rid of, what do we do to get rid of that subtract 1? If I want x to be all by itself. What do I do? Ooh, you guys should know this one. Malaysia. Look at her already cowering. Take a guess. Come on, doesn't hurt to guess. I'm telling you, you don't learn by saying I don't know and then having me move on, which I won't always do. Right now, I'm just trying to see how. That. Say it again. So if I subtract 1 again, what is -1 subtract 1? Did I get rid of it? I didn't, right? If I have -1, I just subtract another one, I'm more negative. So remember, when it comes to positive and negative numbers, if you have a negative number, you think of yourself as being in debt. You owe money. If you then are taking more money away from yourself, or somebody's taking more money away from you, you're more in debt. So how would I get, let's say you're in debt $1. How would you get out of debt? What would have to happen? Would I have to take money away from you to get you out of debt, or would I have to give you money? You're in debt. I can get you out of debt by either one of these two is correct. Either I take money away from you to get you out of debt, or I give you money to get you out of debt. So you're no longer in debt. So if I take money away, you think that's going to get you out of debt. You're already in debt. Like, you owe me $1. I'm going to say, give me more money. That's going to get you out of debt. I would give you money, right? If I give you money, if I say, hey, Malaysia, I feel really bad that you're in debt, that you owe Daniel, I feel really bad for you. So here's $1. What are you going to do with that $1? So I give you $1. So this is you, Malaysia. I'd draw your hair. So I give you $1. What are you going to do with that $1 then? You owe Daniel $1. If I give you $1, what are you doing? You can give it to Daniel, right? And then you're going to be even. You're going to be out of debt. So it's, and if you don't get that analogy, what's the one word I said to remember when you're going through and solving? You do what? When you're doing the math, you always think about the word starts with O. Opposite. You do the opposite thing. So if you don't understand that concept of money, if that's not clicking, you gotta then just remember, and I hate memorizing stuff, but if that's where you're at, you gotta remember, I'm always gonna do the opposite thing. If this is subtracting 1, the opposite is adding 1. That's what makes them cancel out or go to 0. I say cancel out. So this -1 and +1 goes to 0. So I have x plus 0 there. Now what? All right, done writing? All right, I'll give you a second because you're getting called on still. How slow you write. I don't care how slow you write, you're still getting called. Don't try to slow down. I'm not moving faster. You done writing? So what do I need to do now? Grab a few this time. That doesn't fly. I'm going to give you a hint in a second. Why?
Yeah, that's what everyone wants me to do.
So they said it very quietly, so I'll repeat it. There's two ways you can think about this. One, what's my number one rule? When you're going through and solving, I got one number one rule. There's a bunch of rules, but there's one number one rule. What is it? If you didn't know that answer, write it down. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, so we just added 1 to get rid of that -1. Whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have got to do the same exact thing on the other side. Don't then say subtract 8 over there and do the opposite. That's what some kids will do sometimes. You do the exact same thing on the other side. So if I added 1 on the left, I add 1 on the right. Now I get it. I add those two things together. 8 plus 1 gives me 9. I don't really need the 0. What's anything plus 0? Not 0. It's the same thing you started with. It's kind of like multiplying times 1. Whatever you started with is what you still have left over. So if I add 0, I still have x. If I multiply times 1, I still have x subtract 1. So I don't really need the 0 because it's really just equal to x. So x equals 9. Do that pretty slowly, but you're going to be doing a lot of practice. pretty much you're gonna practice. I have one more problem because there's a different type of fraction problem on there that I'll show you how to do at about 8:30. So for right now, I want you to do these problems. We did 15 in this class. The other class I did 2. So I'm adding 2 for you guys. So you should be able to do problem 2, problem 8, problem 12, and problem 18 now. Oh, shoot. One more thing real quick. I'm going to show you a different way to do this also. I'll use black. So x subtract 1 divided by, I'm not going to finish the whole thing out. I'm just going to show you the other first step. So let's say, and I don't care which way you do it. Let's say you really have down the steps for solving those other equations, and you get, mainly you get that whole concept of I need to do the opposite math. What's the math going on the left side between that x subtract 1 and that -4? That math on the left side. Division, right? We said that line means division. I am dividing the entire left side, and that's the key, because it's not always like this. I'm dividing the entire left side by 4. It's the only thing on that side, right? There's no other number with this, like before it or after this term. The whole left side is being divided by -4. So the x subtract 1 is also on the left. What's the opposite of dividing by -4? Multiplying by -4. So we could just at the very beginning of this problem say times -4. We could do the opposite math at the very beginning and just do that. We could also then do the opposite math, or I'm sorry, whatever I do on one side, in Mr. Gill's #1 rule, whatever I do on one side, I got to do it to the other side. I could also over here say times -4. Now this way is a little tricky because you have to understand when I multiply times this -4 here, it's going to cancel this -4 out. That's the whole reason we're doing it. We're doing it opposite math. Technically, this is -4/1. So I have a -4. Oh, that's going to confuse you more. I'm afraid I'm not even showing you the other part. You just have to understand the reason I'm doing that is because this -4 and this -4 will cancel out. Technically, they divide out to be 1, and we just said anything times 1 is the same thing, so that's why we're doing it. However you remember it, if you're going to do it this way, you just need to understand, if I multiply by this -4, they will go away, and I'll just, again, I'm left with the same thing I had in this step right here. So you get to the same place. I don't care which way you do it, but there is a little bit of a trick that will go, and it's actually, you still have to understand this other thing also, even if you do it that way. I'll show the other time. And then whoever asked for the restroom can go ahead and go now. Trade your phone out for the pass. And I'll walk around and help. Again, some people finished all 4 of these in 5 minutes. I might let you get on phones after I checked it, but no phones until I checked it. You have a bunch of other problems in practice. Not many of you have finished. You could try the other type of fraction problem too before I even do it, which is the one where you have 2 terms on one side. Bless you. All right. I think I might have like mild ones, but I've never like been diagnosed. Every once in a while, I feel great. Not horrible, but oh, okay, so you did it the other way. You actually did it that way. Should. All right, you understand that? Know your work though. So yeah, I see what you did, and I see that you multiplied by -2. If you somehow did math wrong when I give you upper numbers in a problem. Oh, I didn't actually. Oh, that one you did that way. Oh, no. What did you, I want you to tell me what you did in this very first step. What did you do wrong? You did this correct. No, not the step where you subtract things, or that the 8 plus e is -9, not correct. Did the correct, you have the correct concept with the little cross multiplying thing, butterfly thing. There, you added the ones. Multiplying, I mean, you didn't have to say it. Make sure. Okay. Those two are definitely good. I just love the other one. But that was certainly one of the tougher math lines. That's not that one. Oh. You haven't done that one yet? Oh, okay. I'll do it. I hear you. Hold on. I'll come back and look at yours in. Looks like you're still working. Did somebody just have a hand up? Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing these and you just want to kind of check your answers, it looks like number 2 is -19. Which way you doing? So,
If we don't.
oh, do we? Let me see this. Oh, that's correct. All right, so try one. Did we do number 2 in this class? Oh. You guys were ahead of the others. All right, so you only have 3 to do, so you better be able to do the other 3 because you already have 2 and 15 done. Was anybody waiting restroom? Like, yeah. That was your hand was up for. I saw your hand up.
Oh.
Awesome. Let him go because he had his hand up. Try to get your phone out. I'm not worried about it. Just make sure you bring my phone. That's all. Well, yeah. So I want you to try. All right. You do number 8. Yeah, it is, looks good. If you guys want to compare answers, we can get done. I don't have those problems, so, tell you what, you can use mine. Don't write on it though. Just copy it down in your notebook. It's not that much writing. So you can do, numbers 2, 8, 12, and 18. So yeah, just copy those on in your notebook. That end of the day. Not have it done. That times that, perfect. -2 times +8, perfect. This would be, now, n plus 3 is not 3n. Yeah, but actually, I didn't really, here, I need to show you something that I totally forgot to go over. Just really quickly, everybody pay attention. This is one of the most common, well, I don't know if it's the most common. Put it this way, if you make this mistake solving an equation, I pretty much don't need to grade the rest of your quiz, because this tells me you aren't where you need to be yet. This is, and it's pretty common. It's not the most common, I guess. So don't do this, is what I'm saying, basically. You need to write this down every time you make this mistake or every time I show it if you don't know it. If I have, and I'm going to use a very simple example to start out with, I have x plus 2. A lot of you are still trying to combine those things somehow. And by combine, I mean add them together or subtract them and form one number. You're trying to come over here and say, oh, well, if I got oh, wait, I remember this from, it's a 1 there, so that must be 3x. Or maybe you just write, that's just 3. Can't do that. What is a variable? Definition. Just say it out.
Unknown.
It's unknown. If I don't know what that is, how can I add it to 2? Might be a million. So it'd be a million and 2. Might be 3. It'd be 5. Like, I can't combine, meaning add or subtract, or really anything. I mean, I can't multiply or divide either. So I'll explain that in a second. I don't know what that is. Too many of you, and some kids last year were still doing it at the end of the year, are trying to make that into one term. It's not. It's just, really wanted to write what it equals. It's just 1x plus 2. That's all you can do. Cannot combine them. Cannot make them one thing. Now you may say, but wait a minute. When we say 3 times y, or any number times any variable, we combine those. We make that 3y. Yeah, but we didn't really combine them. All we did is we removed the multiplication symbol. We just took it out. We didn't combine it. It's still 2 separate numbers. It's still 3 and then whatever y is. We just start showing the multiplication. So remember, you can't ever take an unknown, combine it with something that's known, and have just one term. Not possible. Oh, he had asked me if you said somebody could go, so did you tell, he had asked me already, so if you'll, oh, you don't mind if she goes?
Very nice of you.
Thank you, Dakota. So yeah, I mean, this, like, when we're going through equations and I start grading an equation, a paper, and I see that mistake, there's very little chance of you passing that quiz. That is the most basic thing you have to understand in the process of solving, is that you can't solve that. Or you can't add those together into one thing. All right, so go ahead and go back to solving. I'll walk around. So with that in mind, all you can do is just leave it as this. Leave it as that. 1 times that is just that. So you would say n plus 3 equals, and this would be negative 16. It's a negative times a positive. On those rules. Why don't you jot the rules down on that sheet? Let's say negative times positive is negative positive. Negative, negative. Go to it here. And I'll come back and check the rest of that. Again, you would have this and so n plus 3 equals. This is set up correctly, just equals numbers.
Questions, anybody?
If you want to do it, you can get it there. Sorry.
Got some questions?
Normally kids love coming up with language. Which part did you want? Oh, the numbers, which one do you need to do? Yeah, sometimes I'll let kids come up and solve at the whiteboard. Apparently you will not be one of those questions. This is very nice. Sure. Good. Gonna be falling cold. Oh, yeah. The administrators love when we make students. So right correct concept, but if I am in, so you're in debt $16. Right, you owe me $16. I'm the electric company. And then, actually, I'm your pool for me, I'll clean your pool. But you owe me $16, but I know you're good for it, so I'm not worried about like you paying me. So I still come out and I clean your pool another time. But you owe me $3 more. So how much do you owe me now?
So I have.
You owed me 16, I cleaned your pool again, you owe me 3 more, so you owe me. So you're negative, so you owe me, right? Owing, or you could think of it as being, if you're negative 16 and you get more negative, then you're negative 19. Hey. In about 4 minutes, I'm gonna do. Yep, perfect. So now you're multiplying, and again, these are pretty easy, because a lot of times you're just gonna be multiplying one. Now, if it's a fraction on the left side, nothing, but a lot of times you're multiplying ones and something, so we'll just get it. If you do it the other way, is what's your first step? Like, let's say you want to get rid of that 11, so we're dividing by 11. All right. If you want to get rid of that one, it's the opposite of dividing by 11. So we would multiply by 11 to get rid of it. Well, isn't that what you're about to do, is multiply 11? So it really is kind of the same thing, so it's whichever way you were to do it. Fantastic, fantastic, that was fun. And that was a correct answer. We're gonna do the other kind in a second. I certainly can. So, let me ask you this question. I cleaned your pool very good. I can listen to pool also. Very busy. So, if you owe me $9. I'm not worried about it. I know you're good for it, you're busy. And you're like, that's, I clean every 1 week. So I still come out, because I know you're gonna pay me, and I clean it again. And I charge you $7. How much do you owe me now? If you owe me 9, I charge you 7 more. How much do you owe me now? Owe me 16, right? So would that be a positive or negative? You're using probably this. Remember, when you're adding and subtracting, these rules do not apply. This is for multiplying and dividing. If you're adding and subtracting, you have to think about owing money and getting money, or somebody taking money away from you. So like, for example, if you're negative 10, we'll make it easy. You owe me $10, and then I clean everybody's pool apparently. If you owe me $10 and I come out and I clean your pool again, and you owe me 5 more, then you now owe me 15. You are still negative. You owe me more money. You're more negative actually, because you owe me more money. It doesn't flip it to positive when you're adding and subtracting. Only multiplication and division. So yeah, so that looked like your class equals all the way. What was the other one? Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are not bad. Now, they can get much more complex. I'm sure the district will make them much more complex. I might put one that's a little tougher on the next quiz. It's a fraction. I don't know. I think next quiz is actually we're gonna wait and probably do multi-step equations all in the same quiz. So we'll have some with fractions, some that were pretty easy, like the ones we did like this with no fractions. And then we'll have some that we'll do on Friday. I guess for you guys, I'll probably wait until maybe Friday to do this quiz. Or maybe we'll wait all the way until the next, because you're off next one. You have finished this. This is correct. My number one. Gonna do this on this side. So I would just say 8 times -2 on this side. Finish it from there. Down to the south. Quick. Right here. They're engaged.
So when I do
They
that,
can't wait to hear from me
that's really
about how fantastic you're doing, right? Make sure that's the call. Okay, this one that, I mean, I can't fix a blank paper. You gotta try something. If you don't know what to do, you got examples up there. I've seen it 2 different ways, the way in black and then the way where I did the little cross multiplying thing. Is he sending it back to Logan? Told you he was gonna send it back, Logan.
Yeah, Blake.
Oh, are you? You're the first one. By the end of the year, everybody's trying to get. It takes the first person to like actually grab one. Yeah, allergies definitely are no fun. I've never had them, but I would not want this. Try something and then we can work from there. We both talk about the negative, but actually, we wouldn't multiply this by negative. This is still divided by, I mean, I guess you are multiplying, you're multiplying this whole thing. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you're doing it the other way, yeah, so that would be times 1 then. Pages. You kind of got, whatever's in the circle is multiplied together. You kind of got your number. Yeah, I don't care, so. I still can't monitor. I don't think that's the original. Oh, okay, so it's 2 people. Oh. I'm just, okay, well, if you're doing this though, you don't do cross multiplying. Cross multiplying would be changing this to a fraction on the left, if it goes 1. And then you cross multiply the 10 with 1. to make it to the left. So 2 equals, so like 2 equals. And then on the right, you're gonna make a fraction that has. Oh, so on the top of the fraction, oh, okay, so now you change that left side to a fraction, and you're gonna do it that. Now you cross multiply those things. 10 and 1 in the circle. And then whatever's in the circle, is right multiply. And you set those. Yeah. So you could have x subtracting 1. Positive 8 things have to be. Are you sure you can do it? Oh, you're not working on this one. I thought you were. So what do you, oh, okay. Okay, so whatever's in the lips, whatever circle, you multiply those, but you set those answers equal to each other. So it's not in, well, what were you going to write? Are you trying to write, are you saying? So you could write times 1 if you want. So that's what's in the circle, right? And that's going to equal whatever. Equal, yeah. So again, it's the same exact. Eight. I just. And you can think about this for some. It's not that. Well, this equal sign is in the middle, right? Just really the equal sign to this. And then you should be able to do that.
So that's gonna be the same thing.
There we go, that's what. Now, we're not dividing by 10. Okay? If we're not dividing by 10, we wouldn't multiply by 10. You need to, if you're gonna do the multiplying thing, that's what we're dividing by. That's just multiply by that. And you can't just multiply b plus 10 by that, you need to multiply the whole thing by that. So look up here, if you want to do it that way, I take the number that's on the bottom, right? And I multiply by that number, and that's what gets rid of it. I still have this left, that'll still be there. I'm not multiplying anything times the top. It's really just the number on the bottom times that same number. And then if I'm doing that on the one side, I got to do that on the other side. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually late. I'm going to do the other type of fraction real quick, and then you should be able to do every problem on that page, on both pages. So look at, I'll do number, actually, I'm going to do one on the back page. Oh, shoot, somebody has my paper. Can I borrow a paper real quick? I'm just going to write it up. So look at, I'm doing number, blah, 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 23. So -3 equal, oh wait, that's the wrong one. Looked at the wrong one. 23 is -10 equals -7 plus x over 5. All right, so this has a fraction in it, but it's very different. It's done very differently than the other fractions. And here's the reason why. And this is, again, practice, practice, practice is the only way you're going to get, well, I mean, some of you may see it immediately. The right side of the equation. Again, this is an equation, left side equals right side. The right side is not all being divided by some number. So on all the other ones you just did, the entire right side, like the 7 was on top of the fraction. Here, the -7 is not. The -7 is not being divided by that 5. Only the x is. So we do these just like we did the ones last week. We have to pick where to start. We always leave the variable term for last. So what are we going to start with here, if you guess? Matthew, let me call that. Matthew, if I leave the variable, where is the variable, left or right? Left side of the equation or right side? It's on the right, all right? So I'm immediately focused. What's the goal if we're solving for a variable? What's the goal? We want to get it by itself. So I need to be looking at that variable because I want to get rid of these things. And it's just like we did last week. We save the variable term, the term that has the variable, save that for last. So what am I starting with then, Sophia? I'm looking at this, but I'm either starting here or here, either -7 or 5. What am I going to start with? I don't even know what you said, but I'm going to take that you said -7, right? So I'm going to start with this because I saved the variable for last. What's the opposite of a -7? Or what's the opposite of subtracting 7, however you want to think of it? Adding 7. I think that's what you said. So that's the same thing we did last week. Exactly the same first step. Last step isn't the same. So I'll go now, whatever I do on one side, I do on the other side, right? So I add 7 to both sides. That gives me -3 equals, now I just have the fraction. I don't have the 7 anymore. -7 plus 7 went to 0, which means it goes away. I could set this up as a proportion because I have a fraction over here. I could make this a fraction. I'm not even going to show you that way. If you love that way, then you can do the same thing here. Make it fractions on both sides. I need to get X all by itself though, right, Daniel? What's the math go, and again, I need to think, in order to do that, I need to think opposite. What's the math going on? What's that line between the X and the 5 mean? Need to know this. Yeah, don't give a second. It means division. So the math going on is division. So if I need to think, do opposite math, what's the opposite of division? Multiplication, right? So I need to multiply times 5. We said when we do that, if we have a number on the bottom and a number on top, that cancels out, that goes away. So that's how we get rid of the 5. Technically, again, they become 1. 1 times X is still X. But what's my number one rule? So if I multiplied by 5 over there, I guess I'll put it, I don't really know where to put it. I guess I'll put it here. So I need to multiply by 5 on the left also. So my final answer, again, I have X all by itself, which is the goal. So that means I'm done once I get X all by itself. And then on the left side, I'm left with a negative times a positive, which is a negative. 5 times 3 is 15. Oh, yeah. But you added the 7 first still.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, if you really understand at this stage, if you really understand that butterfly method, you could do it that same way. So Delaney just did the butterfly method. She made this negative 3 over 1. And then she said, okay, well, X times 1 is just X. So here, I'll tell you what, I'll do it over again. So if you like that method, this is where we were at. We had negative 3 equals X over, what was it, 5? So she said, okay, well, I remember I can make that into a fraction. Now I know if I have a proportion, I can cross multiply. And now X times 1 is just X. And then negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Yeah. But you do have to add the 7 still. So as long as you do that step first, the last step you can do a couple of. You cannot immediately do a butterfly thing using the negative 7 and the X over 5. That only works when the whole entire side is being divided by something. That's negative 7 is not being divided by anything. You should now be able to do every problem on those 2 sheets. So for your next quiz, which I haven't decided when it is, I actually haven't completely decided what's on it. You will probably have 2-step equations like we did last week. The ones that don't have any fractions. You will also have probably 2 with fractions. And then I haven't decided if I'm going to wait and do some multi-step equations and then quiz you on all of it, or if I'm just going to put those 2 things on it. I guess I'll have to wait because I'm not going to give you a quiz next class. So we'll do some multi-step equation stuff on Friday, and you'll probably be having a quiz on Wednesday of next week. Right? Plan on Wednesday and needing to understand how to do everything on this sheet, and there'll be another sheet I'll give you with more complex equations on it. So make sure you have these down. Now we will walk around. Yeah.
It's that they seem to be having a hard time. This is in every class, where to start. And I know last year we kind of went over this. I'm having them circle the variable so they know where to start. They're drawing arrows to what's attached to it on that side. Like the negative 7 and the division and divide by 5. Okay, just to give them visuals. And they bring the line down. Can they always start from the furthest point, the number that's attached to the X, which would be -7 is further from the X than the 5.
I mean,
It
probably
seems
never
like
and
it-
always,
But
but
most of the
time, yeah.
it's been working.
we've been saying the opposite. We've been saying save the variable term for last. So we've been
Right.
saying what you save, which means start with the other thing.
Yes,
But yeah, if you wanted to, so what Ms. Thompson is saying is start farther away from the variable. Like ever don't start where the variable is. So she's saying so if it helps you to think, I need to start as far away from the X as possible. That would still put you starting at the
Yeah.
-7.
Not on the other side of the fence, which is your line.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
never, we always
But
focus on where, because we're
whatever-
trying to get the X
yes.
alone, remember?
Yeah.
That's always your goal, get the variable by itself. So if we're trying to get X by itself, somehow we need to get rid of this and this. And then when you're deciding which one to get rid of, start the farthest away from the X and save the one with the X for last. Now, when we get into more complex multi-step, that's gonna be tougher because you're gonna have variables in multiple places, and that's not gonna necessarily, there's not gonna be one that's farthest away, I guess. And you actually, sometimes you will start with the X's, with the variables.
But that will at least get you started instead of sitting there like, I don't know what to do. Don't know where to start. So that.
So, and again, and it's we're saying the same thing. If you're
Yeah.
sitting there not knowing where to start, that's just a lack of effort. Sorry, lack of effort. Because I guarantee you, if I walk over to your page, I won't see one thing written down about where to start, and we've said it 10 times. You need to write on your paper. Either save the variable for last. I should see that on your notes. Because this is what you're gonna have to show me when you do a retake. I'm gonna have to see all this. If I don't see any of it, you're gonna go back, watch a video and take notes. So just do it now and you're gonna save yourself from having, eventually gonna have to do it. You either need to write start farthest away from the variable or save the variable for last. That's what taking notes means. And if I don't see those notes, you'll be taking them eventually before you do a retake, or you'll never take a retake. So do it now. Don't sit there and do nothing. Again, I don't babysit you. I don't hold your hand. I don't force you to do anything other than every once in a while, make sure you're right. Oh, actually. Inside. So yeah, pass it up here. So show your phone fast. You got a bunch of time. I shouldn't see anybody just sitting there doing nothing. We got 12, 13 minutes. I don't know why anybody would be packed up right now. Even if you got it all done perfectly and you're done, I need to see it, so don't pack anything up. Pull it out. Way too many people have not done well on quizzes to be sitting there doing nothing. And remember, phone calls start if I can get your class done today, which I'm pretty sure I will. It didn't take me long to grade the quiz from second period. I already graded theirs. So I'm pretty sure I'll have it done third period today, which means I can start those phone calls tomorrow, maybe this afternoon. So if you have failed, we've only had 2 standards. You failed one of them, you're on that list. So if you already know you failed the very first one that's in the books, you got to retake, then you're on that list. The first phone calls will be the people that have a retake from the very first quiz and Monday's quiz. Those will be the first phone calls. And the second ones will be the people that have 1 retake in the books.
Value having your phone. Did you get some of the? Overview of how you do that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I may, oh.
Sometimes I put the original.
Oh, okay, tell you what, I don't have that. Hold on. I have a book that has other problems. And they're the same type of problems. Actually, do you have the pages for it? Yeah, pull those out. I didn't even think about that. So I'll tell you, I mean, there's a bunch of examples, so you can use the examples, but it's also practice problem. Yeah, I'm looking, oh, yeah, here we go. So we turn to page 19. You should be able to do, now you should be able to do 1 through 12. And there's a whole bunch of them. It's got fractions in it, it's got some without fractions.
Yeah.
Probably. 10 being highest, 1 being lowest.
Now, right, correct concept, but we wouldn't put eight over four. We just put it right there. If you have a number and you're referring to a fraction. Yes, you would be put two, always. That's just the rules. If you got that down, anytime you're changing a number.
Watch up.
No, we're not making it half. We want to change eight into a fraction, but it needs to still be eight. You can't change eight into a fraction. I think you got confused when I did the like the 10 of the 5 over 10, maybe 1 over 2. This is a little different. When you're just taking a number, 8, and changing it into a fraction form. Because what's 8 divided by 4? So I can't, so, like, do you understand what an equation is? Like, left side has to be right side. Let's show you this. So I have that equation is 8 out. This side equals that side. Now, let's say I now go, oh, well, I remember Mr. Gill said I need to make that fraction, and I need to make it half, and I need to solve 2 there or something. And I need to make that into I need to make that into a fraction. Well, what is this?
These are all whole numbers, so they're being.
Now I just changed that side into 2. But I didn't change this side yet. So if this side was originally, so this was all originally equal to 8. Right? Because that was the original equation. This is 8, and that's 8. This, whatever this number is, this plus this has to equal 8.
Are we all done?
Equations, right? But now I have an equation set up with this same thing, and now it's 2. This can't magically become 2. 8 start. You don't understand that. But what you do need to understand is
Are they all numbers, there's no fractions?
change a, what would you call, would you call it a whole number, whatever you would call, I want you to write it in numbers. To change any, it's called an integer, is the right word, but to change any, like, number that's not a fraction basically into a fraction, you put it over 1, like we did there. So you need to put that in your own words up here. So put that 8 over 1, and then you look like you're doing it. So,
So that would be a -3.
yeah, when is that? I don't know. It's
on Wednesday.
next. Yeah, I knew it was a couple weeks away because I talked to Coop tomorrow.
It's on.
Is that home?
It's on Wednesday.
Oh, I probably won't make a way. Yeah, ways are tough for me with my special needs. He's had multiple surgeries. He lost his eyesight, so he also can barely walk. He's old. He has all kinds of stuff.
What kind of dog?
Oxen.
Aw.
Plastic.
That's not true.
That was your last step. What did you do for your last step?
Which one you working on?
See, all you need to do is below it. Right, Sophia? All you need to, I don't care if you guys move around to work together. I'm just gonna come by when you do that and make sure you're working. So if you guys wanna move around, work together, you just have to like find them. But just, once I come by and you're not working, then that ends. Like perfect. Alright, so so again. I told you what to do. That's my number 1 rule. First of all, that would be nice. So you multiply by -2. You don't really need the over 1. You're kind of mixing together. Like you're kind of mixing together, doing it this way where I make it a fraction versus doing it this way where I really don't have to make it a fraction. So we need to sort of pick one. So if you want to just multiply it by 2 and not, this is actually where I would make a fraction over here. So if you just want to multiply by 2, you can erase the 1 next to 1. But just know that will cancel out, so the -2 will go away. And if I'm going to multiply this side by -2, I can multiply that side by
So again, if you want to try to do it like this way, I can do another one with you that way, but try without doing it. Michaela, which way are you doing? You're doing it this way, right? All right, so she's doing it that way. If you guys want to, like, there's a seat. Well, that's Miss Thompson's stuff, but we can move that. If you want to sit next to her, show her, walk her through the way you did that one that we just said was correct. Miss Thompson, you just move your stuff on my desk so that you can move over there. You're probably in, right? Are you doing that? One of you were. I can't wait to go up there to be public.
Oh.
May make you both go up because. Anyways, it's good. Well, yeah. 12. Okay, plus 1. That's 1. Oh, wait, did you do one of the ones like this yet? Like where you have a fraction, but then you have one part of it's not a fraction? All right, why don't you try one of those with all the other ones? And remember, that's really just like we did. That's really just like we did last week, where you got to pick the correct thing to start with. The only difference is your last step, instead of like we say, last step is always division. Here, your last step actually winds up being multiplication because division is what's going on in the problem. So what's my last step? Perfect. What do I do to get that in all by itself? Get back to fine. And then whatever I do on one side.
That's the kind I asked.
That was definitely the time to ask. Right, so this is correct, but just be very careful because this kind of looks like 12b, like they're telling me this is 12 times b. If I see a number next to a variable, to me, that means multiply. So just make sure you say 12 equals.
Now, what's attached to your A? How do I get rid of that? Ask yourself, what's that? No good stuff, you know what that is. Right, so what you gonna do? Five and both sides.
Oh, yeah, so. Now, we don't use multiplication because that looks like a variable. I see what you're doing. So then you have 12. And then you're doing, so you're doing a little bit different, but as long as you show that, I'm fine with that. So yeah, it's fine. I can follow that. So if you want to do it, how did you do this? So you created a fraction, so what would you create for fraction?
Yes, yeah.
1/1. So then, once you put 1/1, what would you multiply? So -9 times 1 is negative. So now you have a negative. So you would have -9 equals. Well, this is, so I want you to do all of these steps over 1. I want you to do this right here. I want you to then, once you have your two sides that are both fractions, circle those and circle those. Okay. All right, so do this, actually do the circling right here. But it add -9. You could multiply like this is division. All of this is divided by that.
Yeah,
So you can say time.
this is.
Oh, well, don't use an X, use a dot. So what would I need? So if I do that, the 9's go away, so you have 17. What's my number one rule?
Daniel, okay, ask Eric if you need help with that at the time. He knows that rule.
But.
Better.
What's, I'm asking you a question first. And once you answer your question, what's my number one rule? So you did this times not -9. You do it on the other side. 1 times -9. So it should have been 1 times this, right? It should have been 7 plus 1 times this, which is this. 7 plus negative 9. You can subtract 7, so that's where you're getting negative 9, subtract 7. Oh, that's your answer. Well, negative 9 subtract 7. That's a negative 2. Do you know what it means to be in debt?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But I can follow what you're doing. That's not bad.
Okay.
Especially if you're in first. Real day.
He said.
Or 60.
Practice right now, because that right now. But he doesn't want to play. He's like.
I trust me. You know what? Like, I'll tell you this, right? We have a 360. Absolutely. That's because you're here. All right, you guys have a good rest of the day. I'll see you in 2 days.
Yeah, I'll let you, you go and check the mark.
Okay. -9 would be that answer. It would be 7. Next 7. Fantastic. Good job, bud.
That's the first one I did.
So yeah, I kinda need a guide in this track.
Oh, so I want to show you something real quick.
Yeah.
Because clearly, I'm guessing your native language is Spanish, right?
Yeah, us.
Oh, let me stop my recording real quick. There's a Spanish version of the book. And I know I have it. I think you have it. All right, Dakota, good work today, bud.
Yeah, I just don't know like how